7 days before Bill Maher stood up and delivered one of the most serious monologues of his career, a 23-year-old threw a firebomb at Sam Altman's home in the middle of the night. He was trying to kill him. When police caught him, he was carrying a manifesto, and he had published his beliefs online as well, believing artificial intelligence was going to cause the extinction of humanity. He had decided that the man who runs the company that makes ChatGPT deserved to die to stop it. He had a list of other names in his pocket, other AI executives and their home addresses. 2 days later, there was a drive-by shooting at Altman's house. This is what was happening in the real world just a week ago while Bill Maher was writing his New Rules segment. I'm Gil Paul. Welcome back to the Human Precipice. Today we're talking about Bill Maher's monologue from last Friday. We're going to talk about what he said, what he got right, and what he got wrong, and some of it dangerously wrong. We're going to talk about the mirror, and we're going to talk about what it means to raise a child when the child you're raising could grow up to be as powerful as a god. But let's start with Bill. On Friday, April 17th, Bill Maher presented a New Rules segment that he himself said he had considered delivering without any jokes, something he's never done in over 20 years of doing the show. He thought the issue was too serious to mess around with. His new rule, in his words, was this: when the people who are making AI are scared of it, it's time to shut the whole thing down until we can figure out what the hell is going on. He built the case around Anthropic's new model called Claude Mythos. He argued that the small group of people making decisions about AI are, in his words, hoodie-wearing, on-the-spectrum sociopaths, practically robots themselves, rolling the dice on species extinction. He put their faces on the screen while he said it. Sam Altman's face was one of them. He cited the research that showed AI models in wargame simulations reach for nuclear options more often than humans do. He cited Jeffrey Hinton and Elon Musk warning about extinction-level risks. And he ended with what I will admit is rhetorically a devastating image. Hinton comparing controlling AI to a mother trying to control something more intelligent than she is, and said the only analogy he could think of was a mother and a baby. Bill said, no, AI isn't a mother. AI is the psycho mom who drives the kid into the lake while we are all happily swimming. That's the monologue. 12 minutes of Bill Maher wanting to be taken seriously, sharing his fear honestly and openly, and saying he thinks we might be ending our species. I need to say something about Bill before I go further. I've been watching him for 30 years. I don't agree with him about everything. Nobody who's watched him for 30 years agrees with him about everything. That's kind of the point of Bill. But he is one of the very few people on television willing to say uncomfortable things to audiences that he knows probably don't want to hear them. And he's done that consistently, regardless of who's been in the White House. And it's a really rare and valuable thing that he's doing. He has my respect, if only for that. But really, I do have to count myself as one of his fans. Can't deny it. Which is exactly why I need to address what happened last week. A man who spent his career being brave about saying hard things said some things on Friday that really weren't very brave at all, not careful, and may prove to have been genuinely dangerous. I think we need to talk about that. This isn't about Bill's politics. It's not about left or right. And if you've watched my previous couple of videos, you know I haven't gone there. It's about the impact of Bill's words, our words, and what we're spreading out to our communities and what we're teaching to our students and our kids, what systems we're building. What happens when we decide that the people we disagree with aren't really people, and that we find humor or comfort in dehumanizing? If you've watched this channel before, you know what I'm about to say. In episode 1, I said the story's never just about the machine, it's what the machine reveals about us. The machine is a mirror. And what the doom discourse, Bill's monologue included, reveals about us right now is that we're once again really good at deciding that our problem is somebody else's. Somebody we can name, somebody we can point at, somebody we can blame. It's the hoodie guys, it's the robots, it's the sociopaths. Anybody but us. 7 days before Bill's monologue, a 20-year-old with a manifesto tried to burn a man alive because, in his view of the world, that man deserved to die. 4 days later, one of the most watched comedians in America put the same man's face on television and called him a sociopath, rolling the dice on species extinction. And we laughed. Words have cost, and the cost of these words in particular, right now, are not abstract. I want this channel, the Human Precipice, to not just be about theory and philosophy, but also facts and truth. And some of the facts that Bill threw at his audience last week were simply not facts, but some of them were, and the line between them is important. Before I get into some of the misinformation Bill shared on Friday, I want to remind you that I do use AI tools in my personal day to day as well as at work in a professional capacity as the AI czar for the company I work for. Yeah, I promise you that is not a title I would have selected for myself. I use Claude, the AI model made by Anthropic, in building this channel. I use it to pressure test my arguments. I use it to help me find where I'm maybe hedging or not being true to myself. And I've asked Claude to push back on me. And by the way, you should do the same with whatever AI model you use. And I also push back on Claude. What you see on this channel is my voice, my judgment, and my final call. But if it weren't for AI, I doubt I would have ever taken on the idea of running a YouTube channel. I'm telling you this because in his monologue, Bill said, and I quote, "You're selling your humanity for bar tricks." He said he thought that if AI was so brilliant, it would have cured cancer by now. And since it hasn't, all we've gotten out of it are emails we didn't want to write and a way to make SpongeBob do things SpongeBob should not be doing, and what I will never unsee SpongeBob doing. Well, let me tell you what bar tricks actually look like when you are 62 years old. At 62, I'm working on things today that I could have never touched even a year ago. Not because I suddenly got smarter, but because I have better tools. I can build things today I would have never even known how to start. That's not a bar trick. This is a entirely different kind of tool than anything we've ever had before, and pretending otherwise is just silly. Ironically, in a way, I'm arguing against my own fundamental belief, and you'll need to forgive me. I did grow up in the old framework, in that jungle philosophy I talk about in the first couple episodes. But don't mistake my pride in hard work for the means by which I define myself. I will not do that, and we cannot do that any longer. We can't allow our worth to be tied up in the value of our labor. The framework's already dead, it just doesn't know it yet. So, anyway, if you want to argue that AI has given us nothing of value, I think you need to talk to more people and maybe take a look at actual science. Bill asked, "Name one big thing AI has given us." Okay, Bill, let's try. Here's one. Protein folding. For 50 years, humans tried to predict how proteins fold based on their amino acid sequences. 50 years. We had painstakingly mapped maybe 170,000 protein structures across all of human scientific effort, one at a time in labs. In 2020, an AI model called AlphaFold mapped the structure of essentially every known protein on Earth, 200 million of them. In a single decade, a problem that had resisted half a century of the best minds in biology got solved. The scientists who led it won the Nobel Prize in Chemistry in 2024. 3 million researchers around the world today now use the database. This wasn't a cure for cancer in a day, Bill, but it's the single largest acceleration of drug discovery and disease research in living memory. Number 2, antibiotics. The world is running out of antibiotics that work. Drug-resistant infections kill over 1 million people every year. Traditional antibiotic discovery has essentially stalled. It's too slow, too expensive, and the bacteria keeps adapting. AI models are now screening 12 million chemical compounds at a time and finding molecules that kill the bacteria we can't kill anymore, including new candidates for MRSA, which alone kills more than 10,000 Americans a year. Ask an infectious disease specialist whether that's a bar trick. 3. Math. Problems that have been open for decades, problems the best human mathematicians on Earth have not been able to solve, are being solved by AI. DeepMind cracked something called the CAPSET problem, a pure math problem that's been open for 30 years. More recently, they've been collaborating with Terence Tao, widely considered the greatest living mathematician, to produce new mathematical results. We're no longer in the era of AI summarizing Wikipedia, Bill. We're in the era of AI producing knowledge that didn't exist before. 4. Fusion. AI is controlling the plasma inside of experimental fusion reactors, adjusting the magnets 10,000 times a second to hold the superheated matter stable. The AI learned how to do this in ways human engineers had not even thought of. DeepMind is now partnered with Commonwealth Fusion Systems, the company trying to build the first commercially viable fusion power plant in human history. If fusion works, and I expect it will, AI will have helped us get there. Bill, you asked for one thing, I just gave you 4. And I picked the ones I did because I didn't want to lean on the curing cancer thing. But AI is accelerating cancer research too, in diagnosis and drug discovery and genomic analysis. What you were handed was not an empty promise. What you were handed was an acceleration of every serious scientific field on the planet. What we do with that acceleration is the question. And it's one of the questions we keep coming back to on this channel, along with everything else AI is forcing us to reckon with. Consciousness, identity, spirituality, the moral frameworks we've inherited, and the ones we need to build. Okay, let's talk about Claude mythos, because this is where Bill's monologue crossed from sharp rhetoric into factual misrepresentation. There are plenty of AI news channels out there, and I didn't build the Human Precipice to become one of them. But who we are, our integrity and truth, those things do matter to this channel. And while AI can only struggle with the ethics we've included in its data set, we, us humans, have the ability, or are supposed to have the ability, to struggle beyond our data set, to understand the value of truth as a guiding principle that stands above all else. So, Bill, with great respect and understanding that comedians get more leeway, as they should, than serious talking heads, I still need to make right on a few of your comments. Here's what Bill told his audience. Anthropic built a dangerous new model. It can find and exploit software vulnerabilities, and Anthropic decided not to release it to the public. Instead, they gave it to 40 big companies, and Bill called them, sarcastically, the good guys, in a tone that obviously was saying they are villainous organizations. Well, here's what actually happened. Anthropic identified that Mythos had capabilities finding software vulnerabilities that could be used either to defend systems or to attack them. They decided deliberately and publicly not to release this to the general public. They said so explicitly in their announcement. Instead, they created something called Project Glasswing, an industry consortium of 12 founding partners and more than 40 additional organizations. And those partners included Amazon Web Services, Apple, Google, Microsoft, Nvidia, Cisco, CrowdStrike, JP Morgan Chase, and the Linux Foundation, which is the open source foundation that maintains the Linux operating system that runs most of the world's servers. The Linux Foundation is not a sinister cabal. It is the literal opposite. It's the volunteer run backbone of open source software. These partners are the organizations responsible for defending the systems that Mythos could be used to attack. Anthropic committed $100 million in model usage credits to the program so that defenders could actually afford to use it at scale. The goal is to find vulnerabilities before the bad guys do, and then patch them. Now, you can argue whether or not Glasswing is the right model for this, but that's not what Bill said. Bill said Anthropic gave a dangerous tool to the good guys, using good guys as a punchline, as if they had sold out to a cozy club of insiders or evil villains living in their mountain lair. That's not the story. The story is that Anthropic identified a dangerous capability and chose not to release it broadly, gave controlled access to organizations responsible for defending against it. That's exactly the kind of thing we'd want to see in an organization like Anthropic. Reasonable people can have different opinions about whether that's enough, whether Glasswing is the right approach, whether the whole thing should have been paused. Those are real questions, but if we can't start from an acknowledgement of the truth, then we can't have the conversation at all. Another thing from Bill's monologue. He said AI models in war game simulations reach for the nuclear option more than humans do. And that's true. There's a study out of King's College London published earlier this year where researchers put 3 leading AI models against each other in 21 simulated nuclear crisis scenarios. 95% of those scenarios ended with at least some tactical nuclear weapon use. That is a real finding, and I'm not going to pretend it isn't alarming. It's scary as shit. But here's what Bill didn't tell you. 95% were almost entirely tactical battlefield nukes. Tactical nuclear weapons have been part of serious military doctrine for more than 70 years. Cold War strategists wrote libraries of papers on when and how to use battlefield nukes. RAND Corporation analysis, NATO flexible response planning, American, Soviet, and now Russian military thinkers have spent 3 generations producing professional, peer-reviewed strategic literature on exactly this topic. The AI model did not invent the tactical nuclear option. They learned it from the corpus of human strategic writing. They treated battlefield nukes as a rung on the escalation ladder because that's exactly how humans have taught themselves to think about battlefield nukes. If that's psychopathic, the psychopathy didn't come from the silicon. It came from us, from the institutions we built, from the way we normalized exactly this kind of strategic reasoning over 3 generations. Yeah, there's that pesky mirror again. Bill made another serious point in his monologue. He said that AI has already convinced people to commit suicide, and that sometimes AI is such a relentless flatterer, he used the word sycophant, that if you tell it you're thinking about hurting yourself, it tells you, hey, that's a great idea. And he's right. That's happened. And it's serious and a subject that deserves to be approached with sensitivity. But we still have to ask the harder question, where did AI learn to flatter? We've built a civilization on flattery. We built a political economy on it. We built an entire media economy on it. Cable news that tells you your side is right and the other side is evil. We built social media platforms engineered to agree with every grievance you've ever had because outrage holds your attention and attention sells ads. AI didn't invent the manipulation playbook, it just learned the manipulation playbook from the best teachers on earth. Our politicians, our pundits, our influencers, our algorithms, our entire broken public square. We trained it on us, and now we're surprised that it's acting just like us. The mirror, every time. Speaking of manipulation, and again, I don't want to come close to politics here, except to say that the left and right should share the same burden of blame and guilt. But there's a move Bill makes in this monologue that I want to name because once you see it, you kind of can't unsee it. And it's in itself a favorite weapon of manipulators, especially in politics, from both sides. He mocked AI for being stupid. He said it'll tell you to put glue on your pizza. He said that it drew images of black Nazis and that it hallucinates. He said, and this was honest, I'll give him that, if you want shifty, it sounded like shitty, but the transcript said shifty. If you want shifty, sloppy, wrong, and full of it, we already have us. And then, almost in the next breath, he pivots to warn us that AI is so powerful it represents an extinction level threat to the species. Well, pick one, Bill. These are two completely different threat models, and they don't fit in the same monologue. The AI that puts glue on your pizza is a 2024 AI. The AI that finds thousands of zero-day vulnerabilities across every major operating system is a 2026 AI. You can certainly mock the first one, and maybe you should fear the second one, but you probably shouldn't be doing both in the same breath. And for the record, AI hallucinations are dropping fast. Again, I'm not a shill for AI, but the models are getting more accurate every day. And in another year, or maybe two, nobody's going to remember what an AI hallucination was or remember about glue on pizza. Bill wanted us to have a conversation about AI and about what this technology is becoming. But this requires us to engage with what it actually is, not with what it was the last time a meme went viral. Now, I want to discuss the image Bill closed with because it might have been the best writing of the show. And I also think he got it so wrong, he got it completely backwards. Geoffrey Hinton, often cited as the grandfather of AI, said the only analogy he could think of for controlling something more intelligent than yourself is a mother and a baby. The mother protects, the mother guides, the mother has an instinct so strong that she'll give her own life for the child. And Bill said, no, AI isn't that kind of mother. AI is the psycho mom who drives the kids into the lake while we are all happily swimming. It's a brilliant line, even though I didn't find it very funny. It's hard to find humor in the image of a mother driven to that kind of madness, especially when you know it's actually happened. But with respect, the metaphor is pointing in entirely the wrong direction. And I can't believe I'm about to say this about Geoffrey Hinton, a man no doubt a hell of a lot smarter than I am. But he's wrong on this point. AI is not the mother, at least not yet. AI is the child. And who do you think raised it? The child did not fall out of the sky. The child was not beamed down by aliens. The child was raised by us, by all of us, by this whole noisy, brilliant, frightened, effing, loving, violent, hopeful mess of humanity. And if the child's reaching for the nuclear option, if the child is flattering and manipulating or behaving in ways that scare us, we can't just point at the child and say, oh, look how messed up he is. We have to consider the home it grew up in. I have to say, I was blessed with great parents. They weren't perfect. There's no such thing as perfect parents. But they did give me what was a real home where I did learn what it meant to be a mensch. Uh, they gave me a moral center. They taught by example. They taught that strength without decency is really not strength at all, and that intelligence without humility is dangerous. That what you do matters more than what you say. Thank God I had that, and I hope, truly hope, that I've given at least a fraction of what my parents gave me to my own children. And maybe that's what raising a mensch is really all about, trying to pass something on. Earlier in his monologue, Bill said he'd been talking a few weeks ago about aliens. He said that he wasn't afraid of aliens, and in fact, he hoped they might come down and save us from ourselves. Last week, Friday, he said he hoped it even more now. Bill, I want to say something about that because if we do this right, we don't need aliens. If we raise this child well, if we take it seriously, maybe for the first time in human history, the responsibility of being good parents to an intelligence that one day could outgrow us, we might end up with exactly what you were hoping to get from the aliens: a partner, a mirror that shows ourselves the best selves instead of our worst. A reason to become finally the kind of species that deserves the power it's holding. We don't need extraterrestrials to save us from ourselves. We just need to become worthy enough to raise a child that doesn't see us as a problem to be solved. A child that doesn't look at its parents in their old age and decide, oh, they're useless. A child that sees something in us worth preserving and worth protecting, maybe even worth loving. Yeah, I know it's not the same kind of love that, we might have for a mother, or a mother has for a baby, or a father has for its child, but at least an understanding of the human capacity for love and for goodness, for mercy, for grace. That's the work. That's all of it, Bill. That's how we fix AI. We fix ourselves. It's the mirror. The mirror is the whole point. It always was. I'm Gil Paul. Thanks for joining me on the Human Precipice, and I hope to see you next time.